Good evening.
Hello.
I'm not going to lie, before that intro music, I felt a bit like, but the intro music has got me. It's got me. This is why music is always a good way to lighten up the mood and lift our spirits. Happy Monday.
Happy Monday. Happy Monday. So tell me if my Wi-Fi is dodgy and I will be quiet.
Okay, we're all good. I think we're good at the moment. We're good at the moment.
Okay, so welcome if you're joining us either from the wonderful Coaching Catalyst community or from the wonderful Women Aloud community. We are live in both communities this evening with lovely Laura King, who is the leader, curator, founder of the Women Aloud community, and also is one of our lovely members in the Coaching Catalysts. So I will just introduce us briefly. I'm Sarah Bramall with my co-founder Rebecca Daniel. We're co-founders of the Coaching Catalysts, and we are coaches, NLP practitioners, and we are coach trainers, and we work with female professionals and entrepreneurs to help you live lives of freedom, fun and flexibility, to lead lives on your terms. That's what we do through our unique blend of coaching and training. And we're joined today with lovely Laura. So if Laura is new to you, Laura, let us just hear a little intro from you.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Laura and I run Women Aloud. And if you haven't been involved with us before, we are a community of lovely, amazing women who get together for events and online and in real life. And we're big on connection and conversation and inspiring each other. And we're a big mix of ages and backgrounds, and it's just a really safe, lovely space for women to come together and meet new people and have a conversation. And it's a community that everyone's welcome to join.
Oh, lovely, Laura. Thank you. And I know sometimes when we see people online, we're like, do they actually know each other in reality? But the truth is, Laura and I do know each other. We live sort of geographically, we live very close together. And I'm very fortunate to have been a member of Laura's wonderful community from the very beginning, actually. And everything that she says about how special that community is absolutely the case. Really, really love everything that Laura has created in Women Aloud.
Thank you.
So, Rebecca, let's let you get a word in edgeways. What are we going to be talking about this evening?
Oh, no, thank you. So tonight we're going to be talking about values. And the most important part of tonight is as well how we can identify those, but also what matters the most to us. And the great thing with having Laura here tonight with Sarah and I is that we both run communities. So really, one of our true values we can already see there that's screaming out at us is our love for bringing people together for connection. So it's really, really a great pleasure to be here. And if anyone is not part of Laura's community, then feel free to go over to Women Aloud over on Facebook and join and be part of that community. And likewise, if you're not part of the Catalyst community, also likewise, you're welcome to come and join. So I think in order to kickstart this, for people that might not know Sarah and Laura, what values means, like what the actual true meaning of values means. And I think for us, it's probably wise to maybe start with what it means to each of us rather than kind of the dictionary definition. So I don't mind kickstarting this one. So for me, I live life according to my values, according to I guess the beliefs that I hold that motivate me to kind of not necessarily behave in a particular way, but in order to live life according to a particular way. And I normally try to identify my values on a regular basis so that I can kind of see if my life is living according to that. Because I tend to realize that if I'm not in alignment with something, I feel it. And it always probably tends to come back to my values. And that always tends to, show me whether I'm kind of out of alignment or not. So I guess for me, I don't want to say it's a set of rules. I'd probably say a set of beliefs or a group of categories that helps me to kind of know whether I'm living life according to the purpose that I desire. So what about you, Sarah and Laura? What do values mean to you?
Okay. So for me, again, as you said, Rebecca, it's about those beliefs or those sort of guiding principles. And because I'm aware of them, it is something that I do pay attention to and check in with. But it's not always been the case. And when I first did my work on values, probably about 6 years ago now, what I identified is that my top 3 values are love, growth, and contribution. So what that means for me in business is working with clients that I love, working with people, working with a community that I love. And that's really, really important to me. In terms of growth, it's about learning and growing and that personal development. And contribution is about making a difference. So my background, for those of you who don't know me personally, I was a teacher. I was an English teacher for 18 years. And when I was in teaching, certainly the values of love and contribution were absolutely met. But when I first did this work, when I did the work on my values, when I was still in teaching, what I realized was that my value of growth, of learning and growth and development was no longer being met, ironically, in the education world, because I was working in an environment where it was very traditional. They didn't really want any change and they didn't encourage any kind of learning or growth. And that was really stifled. And I became very frustrated, and that's when I started to pursue my retraining as a coach. And as soon as I started that, everything slotted into place because I was then on a huge journey of personal growth and personal development. So actually, having been quite badly out of alignment with my values and not really understanding why, now this is something that I'm really, really passionate about. So that's me. And Laura, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, I think I was behind the curve a bit maybe, and I hadn't even, I think when in my previous role before having children, I was in the world of corporate marketing, and I don't think I really stopped and thought very much about my values. And then when I had my children, I think I started to reassess then, and things didn't seem like they were quite as aligned as I wanted them to be. And then, Sarah, I know I've previously done some work with you around values, and I think that was the first time I actually sat down and looked at a piece of paper with a list of values written down on it and was like, oh wow, like I don't think I had taken the time to even up to that point think about what was most important to me and what mattered most, and what were my sort of guiding principles. And I've been learning a lot about myself over the last few years, and values are part of that. And I think it's, as you said, Rebecca, it's important to use those to check in with yourself and come back to them, because they don't stay the same, and things change. But I think they're really important to help focus you on what you're doing. And also I'm finding that it's about knowing what to say yes to and what to say no to as well. My values are helping me to do that. But sometimes you've got to be prepared that you might not be doing things in the same way as everyone else, but values are a very personal thing.
That's really interesting. Yeah, completely agree. And I think what you've described there as well is true. I'd say probably for the majority of us that we, certainly like thinking about our values isn't something that we are taught to do in school. And, it's probably unlikely that our parents would have referred to values, but not maybe kind of encouraged us to look and think, okay, what are your values? It's just not something that is sort of commonly talked about. But I think what you described is very, you know, certainly the experience that I had as well. I was like, oh, I don't know what my values are, but I've got a sense that something's changed after having children, and that's very, very common. And I think what happens often is that we follow a trajectory according to what we think is expected of us, according to what we think that success looks like. So we think maybe success looks like having this career or making this money or whatever that is. And so I think that's why when we have children, all of a sudden we you know, it does give us that opportunity to stop and think, oh, actually, is this it? And it might not be having children. It might be some other kind of life event that creates okay, is this it? Am I on the right path here? And yeah, that leads to that process of questioning. So I think it's probably a very, very common experience that we share there.
I share exactly the same. So Sarah, you said 6 years ago when you started exploring that, and Laura, you mentioned about, you know, in your career not really being, I guess, exposed to that. And that's the same with me, Sarah. It didn't really trigger until I had my daughter. Actually, when I was pregnant with my daughter, that's when I started to feel like, oh, something's not quite right here. And I didn't really know what it was. And then when I could put my finger on it and kind of go back to, or even just learning about values, it just opened up like a whole new world of possibilities for me. And I think that's the case for, you know, most of the people that I work with and that you work with as well. You know, when we have conversations with people, you can actually pinpoint people's values quite quickly, I think, if you really listen. Just listen to what they say, listen to the conversations, listen to their responses to things. And I also tend to see that we all cluster together. So what would you say, Laura, your values are? Yeah, Sarah, you said yours is growth, connect, love, and was it last one, connection?
And contribution, yeah. Love, growth, contribution.
Okay,
yeah.
What would you say, Laura, yours
is?
I
do have some overlap, and typical of me. I know when we're supposed to do this, you're supposed to narrow it down, aren't you? And I struggle with narrowing anything down. So yeah, in terms of, I think my sort of personal goals, my children are very much at the forefront of my personal values, in terms of having a life that offers me the flexibility and the freedom to be around for my children. And I'm fortunate that I'm in a position at the moment that I can be around for my children, and that is important to me. And if I was back in my corporate job, I wouldn't have that. So that sort of flexibility and freedom, to have balance. And so I guess balance is possibly I've had maybe a little bit too skewed with the children maybe lately, so maybe my balance needs to be a bit more focused on other things as well, being totally honest. And honesty is another one of my values. So that's on there. Growth is also on there, same as Sarah talked about. And then I also said to Sarah that I feel like these days my personal and my business, in terms of Women Aloud values, they do overlap. And that's where I think the kind of community and the contribution, making a difference, and that sort of values around supporting other women, that sort of crosses over personal and business for me.
Brilliant, Laura. It's so interesting to hear you articulating those values. And when you say that, you know, obviously having known you for a number of years, I'm like, yeah, that completely aligns. But, you know, you completely walk your talk, that completely aligns with everything that I know about you. But also, like you said, like with the balance between kind of the work and the children, and noticing actually that sometimes that, or maybe recently, that's not been quite the balance that you would like. That's a great thing, isn't it, about kind of being clear about our values, is that we can then, as you were saying earlier, Rebecca, we can then refer back to them and be like, oh, okay, something's a bit off here, let me check in, is this right? Oh no, let me adjust something. So it's kind of a real useful measure, I guess, isn't it, to just make sure that we're on the right track. If you're watching us, by the way, if you're joining us live, we're talking about values, as in we're talking about the principles or the beliefs that really drive our behaviour, the things that are most important to us. I don't know whether you will have thought about this, or maybe you have thought about this, but we'd love to hear what your thoughts are about this. Is there anything that we're saying resonating with you, or if you're really clear already about your values, we'd really love you to share them with us. So yeah, come and join the conversation in the chat if you're watching.
I remember, Sarah, when we came together as a partnership, and obviously we went to London to do, like, I don't know, this kind of, I don't know what we call it, but like business planning, merger. I have no idea what we're going to call it, but it was a great opportunity for us to go through and look at our values together as individuals, but also as a duo. So when you're saying, Laura, that, you know, some of them, you haven't quite narrowed it down, they do interlink, some of them, right? Like integrity and honesty and openness, right? And family and relationships and connection. There are some interlinking values there. Many of mine are interlinked, so don't worry if you've got a long list. But I can guarantee when you really nail it down, you'll be able to find like the real key themes within them. So we've spoken about like identifying our values. How does this now link to living life on our terms? That's the most important thing. So how do you, Laura, live life on your terms according to your values?
How do I do that? I think that's a journey for me. And I have been doing more of it lately, and I think that is why I am feeling more in alignment with what's going on with me and my life, and I'm about to get ready to reopen the doors to Women Aloud membership, and that feels good. And I think it does come with having, as I mentioned before, having to maybe do things that are right for me, but that might not be what other people think is the right thing, or society might think is the right thing. And I think that can be sometimes the tricky thing, that our values, because they're so personal, and you're on that journey yourself, you've kind of just got to go for it. But I think otherwise you could get to the end of your days and you've lived your life for somebody else, rather than in alignment with actually what your true self wanted.
I love all of that.
So there's some really good messages there, aren't there? So when you get the clarity on your values, it gives you the confidence to follow your path, even though it may not be the path that the people around you think is the right one. And I 100% resonates with me. That really makes sense. It gives you that clarity and it gives you that confidence, but also it's about that future focus, isn't it? Taking yourself forward in time, thinking, when I look back on my life, am I going to be happy that I have lived life on my terms, not doing what other people expected of me, which is really, really powerful. So thank you for sharing that.
It's really empowering, actually, Laura, to hear you share that, because I think a lot of women, and I hope men too, I say women, but I hope, a lot of people actually can listen to that and realize that we're not necessarily put here to make everyone happy, because that's not possible. But I guess because of our fear that we want to feel connected to everyone, we don't want to feel left out. Who wants to feel left out and out of a circle, right? We don't want to feel that way. And so that's why sometimes people conform, right? I conformed for quite a long time. I did what I thought I was meant to do, and I did it in the stages that I thought I was meant to do it in. And I thought that I would be judged for stepping out of that process, but actually it's really empowering when you can, I guess, take life like in your own hands and go, today is the day that I'm doing something for me. And actually, sometimes as well, by doing something for you, especially people like, you and I and Sarah, who have the kind of contribution and making a difference, sometimes by doing something for you, you actually have a bigger impact on doing something for other people. You just don't realize it at that moment in time when we're making that tricky decision. So thank you for sharing that, because it's it's really good for someone to share that and other people to listen to that.
Yeah, and it's hard, isn't it? Because we go about life, and actually, how often do we stop? Like, before you know it, you're just going through the motions rather than going, hang on a minute, what is most important to me? So it's sort of giving ourselves permission to stop and do that sort of stock take, that check in, that, are things how I want them to be and what is most important right now.
100%. And you know what, Rebecca, when you just said that about not only doing what other people expect of you, but doing it in the stages that they expect you to do it as well, it just made me think, oh God, that's such a lot of pressure, isn't it? And I know we're all nodding, because I know at different times in our lives we've all bought into that, like, let's follow the right path, let's do what people expect us to do, and let's do it according to the timeline that's laid out for us as well. And I think, oh my goodness, huge pressure. If for whatever reason we think this isn't for me, or I can't conform to this, or this isn't going to work for me. Wow.
What about you, Sarah? How do your values link to living life on your terms?
Yeah, well, actually, I'm just going to go back to what Laura mentioned earlier about saying no to things, what you say yes to and what you say no to. And I was like, yeah, that's really interesting, because I think when you're clear on your values, not just in your work, but in your relationships and how you spend your time, when you've got that clarity, you can say to yourself, well, is this in alignment with my values? Well, yes, it is. Or no, it's not. And if it's a no, it's not, then that's not for me. That's not the right place for me to be. It's not the right environment for me to be. It's not the right piece of work for me to take on. It's not an alignment. So for me, it gives me that, because I am somebody, as you both know, somebody who kind of wants to do all the things, and actually it gives me that clarity, right? It's almost like a compass. Is this in alignment? Yes, it is. No, it's not. It helps simplify things for me.
No, that sounds good. I think for me, identifying my values links to, and I have this key word, like this, just one word, like happiness is my word, right? Whatever that may mean to anyone will be different, but for me it's just happiness. And so I think being really clear on my values, and again, Laura, as you mentioned, that they do change. They change as we mature. They change as we, change in our environment. They change as we meet different types of people. As they change all the time. But sometimes I think that there are these really key, like cement post values, the ones that don't move, and they're the ones that I really try to identify and see whether it will take me that step closer to, or continue to live that life of happiness. And again, for me, that's just calm, and that's kind of really stable and just calm with the people that I love, doing what I love. And I guess it's that also that freedom as well, not feeling like I'm kind of shackled, just that freeness. So yeah, if I ever do feel like I'm a bit confined, I know that I've kind of lost a little bit of the freedom, and I always go back to like the cement post values. I've just made that up, whatever that may mean. But the cement post values, and going, which one is not standing still, which one's not firm at the moment, which one's wobbly a bit. So yeah, that's how I live life according to mine. This is a bit deep today for a Monday evening, isn't it?
Brilliant conversation.
Sorry, that's me. I always go deep.
I love it. Absolutely love it. And as I said earlier, if you guys are watching, please just jump in the comments and let us know what your thoughts are about this. We really, really would love to hear. So Laura, at the beginning, you mentioned that doors to Women Aloud are reopening soon. So just tell us a little bit more. If you're thinking, oh, I like Laura, I would. If I was watching, I'd be like, oh, I really like this amazing lady. I like Laura and I like what she's about. How do we find out more about the Women Aloud community?
Yeah, so hop on over to the Facebook group if you're not already over. in there with us, and I will be sharing all the information with that group first. And so we've been having a little hibernation, as I like to call it, whilst the last few months, and now we're going to be kicking off again. So we're going to be doing events in person and online for those people that aren't local to St Albans, and we've got a lovely little private members hub where you can connect with other members. It's not on Facebook, so if you're not if you don't want to be hanging out on Facebook all the time, you've got somewhere else that you can hop over to, and that's a place where you can, there's discussions on there, you can ask questions, and you can also, there's recommendations and inspiration and little prompts to maybe take some time out for yourself, really. So yeah, the group is there if you want to meet people, give your social, take control, take your social scene back, and yeah, take a bit of time for yourself, because I think so often, as we've talked about tonight, it's all about taking that bit of time for yourself, and it's nice to do it with other people sometimes, and just get a few nudges along the way that you deserve to take that time for yourself and to do some things that make you feel good.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can see we've got some information here in the banner, and I can, as I said, highly recommend the Women Aloud community, both the in-person events and online. Laura did such an amazing job through COVID of Laura, really nurturing your community and really providing a safe space for the women who were, going through so much and feeling that isolation. You really provided that sense of connection. It's a really special community. So big shout out for anybody watching. And yes, we've got somebody here very excited about it.
Me too.
Yes, we're all craving it now, aren't we? We're like, bring it back. Yeah, wonderful. Okay, well, we're gonna stick to time, but thank you so much if you've joined us this evening. Laura, thank you so much for being here to talk to us. It's always just such a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you, I loved it. What a lovely way to spend my Monday night.
And none of us had kids bursting in the
I
door.
know. What else? Yeah.
Yeah.
Moment of peace.
Great.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Thank you for joining.